divine, but really, judgment, divine or otherwise, is around us and within us all the time, isn't it? Embedded in the observations we make every day, in the words and actions of our own families, friends, our neighbors, co-workers, public authorities, the media, you name it. Everyone is our judge, and we judge everyone. I really struggle with judgment. At its worst, it's aggressive. It's isms and phobias, racism, ableism, ageism, xenophobia, homophobia. It is a vengeful Old Testament God saying, I will unleash my anger against you. I will judge you. I will not look on you with pity. I will not spare you. I will surely repay you for your conduct and the detestable practices among you. Whew. That's Ezekiel, by the way. I think judgment is a disease, really, like a cancer, but worse even, a virus, like COVID. It infects us and we infect others. But there's no vaccine against judgment, and I fear it has become an epidemic, maybe a pandemic, and ultimately is a real public health emergency. But unlike a virus or cancer, judgment is a choice. Every judgment is a choice. Good, bad, virtue, sin, friend, enemy, right, wrong. And making that choice can cause great mental and physical harm. So sometimes I really wonder, what is the value of judgment? And is judgment even necessary at all? Really, because you know who doesn't judge? Our ancestors, our evolutionary parents, animals. In his book, Sapiens, Yuval Noah Harari says, Homo sapiens, us, rules the world because it is the only animal that can believe in things that exist purely in its own imagination, such as gods, states, money, and human rights. Yay! But doesn't it also make us the only living beings on earth who judge? Animals do not judge. They have emotions. Yes, your dog does love you, but she doesn't judge you. Even human babies and young children don't judge until we teach them to. Biology enables, Harari says. It is culture that forbids. Biology enables. Culture forbids. Well, now, culture defends itself by saying, oh, we only forbid that which is unnatural. But from the biological perspective, nothing is unnatural. Whatever is possible in nature is also, by definition, natural. So it is culture which creates judgment. And again, I wonder, do we need to judge? Does it help others? Does it help us? Judgment is a key tenet of most major religions, though. Judaism, Islam, Hinduism, Christianity, even Jainism, from which the story of the blind man and the elephant comes, among other locations. All speak of some sort of record keeping throughout our lives and a day of judgment when a supernatural judge or judges will hold us accountable for our thoughts and deeds and decide our fate after death accordingly. One day our personal tally sheet of good versus bad will be reviewed and we will get a ticket to the good place. Or, well, maybe it's going to be bad for a long, long time. So, to help us, most religions offer some moral guidance, similar to the golden rule, right? Do unto others as you would have them do unto you. And a warning to judge not, lest ye be not judged yourself. Only Buddhism, among the big five religions, places our fate squarely in our own hands. Rather than divine judgment, it is the sum of our actions, our karma alone, which will decide our fate as we travel through continuous cycles of life, death, and rebirth on our path towards enlightenment. And what if the atheists are right? What if there is no afterlife or next life? Life just stops, full stop. When is Judgment Day for atheists? What's the point in judgment if there's no ultimate reward or punishment? And who is the judge? Some karmic algorithm? A legal system, maybe? God forbid, the court of public opinion? Or ourselves, because you are not the boss of me. Well, who gets to judge? A judge, right? Judgment, in a legal term, refers to the process of forming an opinion after careful consideration. So judgments have their place in a court of law, yes, whereby social agreement, we give authority to a judge or jury to determine whether or not human behavior is in accordance with the laws we have agreed to. But nobody has granted us authority to play judge and jury in our personal lives. And yet, don't we do that all the time? Declaring our approval or disapproval of whatever and whomever we're experiencing and observing? Now, observation is necessary for survival. And we're all trying to survive. I'll bet we make 1,000 observations every day, really. I mean, it's raining. It's 90 degrees. There's an accident on the Dan Ryan. We wouldn't last 24 hours without the ability to observe. But don't we make almost as many judgments? It's raining, yuck. 90 degrees, oh, summer in Chicago. I hate traffic. The Dan Ryan is the worst. Are these judgments necessary for survival? What about these? What is wrong with that screaming kid in the grocery? What is that 300-pound woman thinking wearing those leggings and eating a Big Mac and fries? I mean, really. Has anyone given us authority to make those judgments? Are they formed after careful consideration? Heck no. They're snap judgments, right? Irresponsible, unhealthy, ugly, dangerous. They happen in the blink of an eye without careful consideration. Now, no big deal if it's just the weather, right? And maybe life-saving in face of a saber-toothed tiger rushing at us with teeth bared, but the same type of snap judgment can also kill, as was the case with Ralph Yarl. 16-year-old African-American youth, Ralph was just trying to pick up his siblings from a friend's house, but he mistakenly walked up to the wrong door, where 84-year-old Andrew Lester shot him dead before any words were even spoken. Lester said he thought the youth was trying to break in. There are too many stories like this one, and not many saber-toothed tigers. So I think this is important to remember before we open the door or our mouth. Snap judgments are almost always based on inadequate information. Remember the blind men and the elephant? And whether we want to admit it or not, snap judgments often, almost always, express our own personal prejudices. From skin color, body shape, age, gender expression, all the way to language, education, income, political affiliation. Are we just seeing the tail or the trunk or the ears? Isn't the elephant all of those parts and more? Aren't we? And even if our snap judgment doesn't end in death, that doesn't mean it's innocuous. In my work as a medical educator, I have a colleague with more medical credentials and experience than I, who is a wonderful teacher. But she speaks using her natural African-American vernacular English. And I wonder, I fear, do the med students hear the wisdom in her words? Or do at least some of them immediately discount her credibility because she doesn't even know proper grammar? I have a girlfriend who is 5'3" tall and weighs 170 pounds. Can you picture her? Observation is important in medicine, so practitioners scan your vital information, your height, your weight, etc., before they even walk into the room. And like us, they can imagine what 5'3" and 170 pounds means. Recently, my friend went for a checkup. Almost immediately, the nurse practitioner started to say something about my weight. But then she stopped herself. Wow, you have great oxygen levels in your blood and your heart is looking good. Geez, fantastic resting heart rate. A recent Facebook post from one of our local community groups right here expands on her experience. Quote, I'm looking for a primary care doctor who doesn't stop at lose some weight when investigating symptoms. Do you have any recommendations? Because fat people deserve decent health care too. Her post had multiple me too comments within minutes. Judgment is a public health issue. I assess students every day for insensitive, judgmental language. Why? It's part of the way we're grading them now. Because most of us won't tell our doctor how that makes us feel, do we? We might just not come back, ignore or discount our own legitimate health concerns, avoid getting tests or exams, meds or treatment. How they communicate can truly save lives. And it isn't only our words or even our prejudices, but the lens through which we make our observations. I know my nurse friend is a smart, thoughtful, experienced teacher. I know my 170-pound friend cares about her fitness and diet. And I will easily forgive imperfection in a friend. But what about the supersized stranger at McDonald's, or my idiot neighbor, or my racist relative? What about the Gen Xer son asking his boomer dad, so, how are your new neighbors? Oh, we really like them. We've had them over for dinner a couple of times and become friends. You know, they're cooking us dinner next week. They're Oriental and she's making her special dumplings. Oriental, Dad? Jesus, are you kidding? Racist much? Oriental is so racist. I mean, there's no country called the Orient. God, how embarrassing. Dad just stood there in the kitchen with his head down. True story. He finally looked up teary-eyed. I'm sorry, son. I'm not sure what I've done or not done to make you so angry. I just can't do anything right. So, is Dad racist? Who's the judge? Is judgment necessary? What if the son had taken a moment and asked, you know, I'm curious, Dad, where exactly are they from? Because, you know, Dad, people aren't using the term Oriental anymore. Some people might find that offensive. I just thought I'd let you know. I bet we all still feel the pain of judgmental comments, even from long, long ago. I know I do. But there may be a danger greater even than the pain snap judgments cause. And I wonder if this is the real public health crisis of judgment. Over time, our judgments accumulate to create a point of view, which then becomes the lens through which we interpret new information. The danger is when our point of view becomes so familiar, we stop questioning the truth of each new judgment in new situations, with new people, in light of new information. All Republicans are. That neighborhood is. All gun owners think. Boomers always. And since the kids left, I can say, you know, millennials are all. I try to teach new nursing students right at the start of their education to do two things simultaneously. One, trust their perceptions. And two, monitor their implicit biases. Not easy. Because implicit bias, by definition, occurs automatically and unintentionally. But it still affects our judgments, our decisions, our behaviors. So if you perhaps bristle a little at the thought of having personal prejudices, is unintentional bias a little easier to swallow? to accept, to think about? 20-second experiment. Close your eyes, and you're welcome to fan yourselves. But really, close your eyes, this is private, and just imagine a summer day. Spiders. Teacher. Mount Greenwood. Conservative. Grandma. Okay, open your eyes. Did your mind pull up an image, a feeling, a judgment? And if so, why? Memories? Personal experience? The news? You know, I'd love to do something like this again with our eyes open and have conversations. Why did you put your thumbs up for spiders? Or, why are you thumbs down for conservative? What do we gain when we're curious about our differences? And there are hundreds of opportunities each day to self-check for biases. When you read a story or a news report, how do you imagine the characters? Are they fully abled? Could they be otherwise? Are they your same race? Your sexual orientation? Who is attractive and who is not? And what does attractive look like in your mind's eye? And then throughout your day, how many assumptions can you reimagine? Is the engineer on the metro maybe an African-American woman? Could your Uber driver also have been an engineer in Colombia? Does the child screaming on the grocery store floor maybe have autism or ADHD or just a really bad day? Are the two women at school pickup Jamal's parents? Who was the homeless man on the street before? It's easier to imagine what we're surrounded by than what is foreign to us, so we are blessed in Chicago to be surrounded by great diversity. But it is still our responsibility to keep our eyes and our minds open and aware of our unintentional bias and judgment. So, there may not be a vaccine or a cure for judgment, but there is at least a healthcare treatment plan. Call it a lifestyle modification, like reducing sugar and switching to a plant-based diet. Judge less, discern more. True confession, I had to look up discernment because, well, how is it different than judgment? The first definition I found not so helpful. The ability to judge well. But I love the Christian contextual definition. Discernment is perception in the absence of judgment with a view to obtaining spiritual guidance and understanding. Perception without judgment with the goal of understanding. Both judgment and discernment rely on perception, but discernment replaces judgment with curiosity, which unlocks our access to understanding. The mind can only gather, compute, and produce thoughts either through curiosity or judgment. And remember, I said our Homo sapien brains are pre-wired to use imagination to judge our perceptions quickly enough to save our lives from that man-eating tiger. So, choosing discernment instead requires a manual override from judgment to curiosity each and every time there is no tiger chasing us. Like my nursing students, we must consider our perceptions, yes, but also question our biases and stay curious. Why is this so hard? I'm sorry to say, because we're adults. Biology enabled, but we've had a lifetime of culture forbidding. Curiosity is the hallmark of how children's minds function. All the kids that left would be like, what are you talking about? Judgment is the hallmark of our adult minds. We have learned judgment. So I'm also hopeful we can unlearn it, or at least override it, like this mom. Last story. I lovingly refer to my older child as the question monster. Everything is a question. Every move I make, everything I say, anything she sees, it's an endless litany of questions. And yes, I'm glancing over at Hazel's parents and wondering. It upset me to such a degree, I finally realized there had to be something wrong with me, not her. When I sat with the discomfort for a while, I realized that her questions made me feel judged. When she asked, "What's for dinner?" I oddly felt judged for not knowing yet, or as if my ability to feed her were being challenged. When she asked, "Why are you on your computer right now?" I felt judged for not paying attention to her. When she asked, "Why are you wearing that?" I thought she was suggesting I didn't look nice. The more my daughter questioned me, the more I felt on the defense. Yes, this isn't a rational reaction to an 8-year-old, I realize, but it was my automatic response: judgment. When I finally realized she was coming at me from a place of curiosity, I began to see her questions differently. I manually overrode my judgment mindset to one of curiosity. I began to see her questions weren't judging me and my choices. She was simply trying to understand them. She wasn't asking the questions because she thought she had the answers. She was asking because she didn't. She's never trying to make a point about things. She's simply trying to make sense of things. I want to reach back and embrace my inner 8-year-old. I want to be curious and make sense, not points. Sometimes it's not too hard to flip the switch. So, let's start small with avocado toast and pumpkin latte, and then maybe see how far we can shift from judgment to curiosity. Because I know, much of the time it's way, way harder than avocado toast. It's issues and judgments that feel so emotional and so perilous. It's racism and white supremacy, environmental destruction, abortion, guns, war, migrants, our personal rights, and our global responsibilities. I get afraid, and I judge. So here are my reminder Post-its. Judgment decides before knowing all the information. Curiosity keeps gathering information. Judgment feels. Curiosity thinks and ponders. Judgment points blame. Curiosity questions if anything requires blame. Judgment tells. Curiosity listens. Courage is what it takes to stand up and speak. Yes, it does. But courage is also what it takes to sit down and listen. Didn't think I'd ever quote Winston Churchill. The longer we listen to one another, the more commonality we find in our lives if we exchange life stories and not simply opinions. And the most persuasive of all to me are the real words, which I wish our teens had heard, because it's from an adolescent's plea to adults. When you accept the way I feel, then I don't need to spend time and energy defending myself or trying to convince you. And I can focus on figuring out why I feel the way I feel and what to do about it. Please remember that what you think are irrational feelings always make sense if you take the time to listen and understand me. None of us are God, thank God. Even so, all of us can be a vengeful God, and sometimes it's really hard not to. But we can also be a forgiving God, or we can choose not to play God at all. Like Reverend Hewitt, I want to be aggressively non-judgmental, to believe Roger Cooper's tweet that we are all just trying to survive, to assume that we all care and manually override my default switch from judgment to curiosity, and to let discernment be my spirit guide to understanding, to compassion, and perhaps a path to enlightenment, whether in this life or the next. Because no matter when, Judgment Day is not today. And now, if you're still alive, join in singing hymn number 414 as we leave this friendly place. It's simple, but it's new, so we're going to